Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Erik Saengerhausen. Erik has been buying and selling for over 20 years and has created well over 1,000 real estate notes. He's written a book on owner financing and recently got into land subdividing. Combining his owner finance background with land has opened up new doors with new ways to make money. As more and more investors flood the basic residential market, this has allowed him to separate and get into a niche market that is less crowded, but that comes with its own perils, as we will discuss. Erik, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Doing good. I'm adjusting to the Texas cold weather. We're not used to that here.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from here, Seguin,
Seguin,
Texas.
yeah, right on. Yeah, it's pretty chilly. Like overnight, like it just snapped, right? Like here in Austin, we're like in the 30s at night. It's crazy. So
Yeah. It's like 100,
right.
105 to 30.
Yeah, in a blink of an eye. Welcome to Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. So let's just jump right in. Tell us, how did you get started in doing land deals?
During COVID. So before that, I spent 12 years. I had a business in San Antonio. We were doing like 100 to 120 houses a year, owner financing, selling notes, holding notes, doing all that. And that was pretty much a full-time job. It was a pretty big company. And then when my partner and I split right before COVID, I wanted to stretch my legs and do some other things in the real estate world. So I went into different kind of flips, and I did some warehouses, which I still do, building warehouse complexes, and did some shipping container stuff. I built like a little park over here in McQueenie, did some down in Port O'Connor. Just started, spent 12 years in one specific niche. And then when that was over, I just went crazy. But I was sitting on some cash, COVID hit, I'm sitting on the couch, and I talked to a buddy of mine that actually was trying to buy some land for himself. And he was doing some mailers to like specific street of people. And it dawned on me, I was like, man, that's a great idea to take that and leverage it. And I picked his brain on what his letter looked like and what he was doing and how he was doing it. And I took that to Canyon Lake. I don't know why I did Canyon Lake, but I just basically started mailing tons and tons of letters over there to just little trash lots. And during COVID, the beginning of it, everyone got nervous. If they owned anything worth of value, a lot of people were just selling it so that they had money in their pocket. And I just started buying everything I could. I think I did, I don't know, I'd have to pull a spreadsheet up, but it was probably close to 100 little lots. And I'm talking like trash lots, buying them for $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And then when I turned around, everyone, by the time I was done, I got this going and started buying the lots, people started getting cabin fever. And the home builders were hitting the streets real heavy. And there I was sitting with all these lots and just started selling them like crazy, tripling. Some of them I was quadrupling my money. So when I looked up, I think I went in with 300 grand just to play with. And I came out with over $1 million. And so I really liked that. The problem was it was extremely stressful. It was the phone's blowing up. I'm mailing out letters. It's expensive. And chasing my tail, running all over Canyon Lake every day. And I was like, man, it'd be nice if I could do this, but without having to, I like the land, I like the lots, I like doing all that without having to have all these different ones everywhere. So I started looking at bigger tracts. Started off with, I think it was 30 acres south of Floresville area. I took that, subdivided it, and then went a little bit bigger, and then went a little bit bigger. And then the most recent one I did was 200 acres here in Seguin. It was like $2.5 million. And I'm working through that one right now. So that's the overview, if you will, of how I got into it. Just fell into it, really.
Yeah, I love that. Quite a journey. You mentioned that you started doing sort of these little trash lots and now you're subdividing 200-acre parcels. Quite a journey in itself for sure. So how did you learn? Did you have a mentor? Did you go through some type of course or coaching program?
Yeah, great questions. For the little trash lots, you just learn by buying the wrong deal and losing money, right? Getting feedback when I would go to sell them. Why didn't this one sell? Why did this one sell? So I self-learned on the smaller ones. When I got into the bigger ones, I found a guy out of Austin that does like big, massive subdivision stuff, things that I want nothing to do with. They're very capital intensive and take a long time and can be extremely stressful. He told me some horror stories that would just put you out of business if you're not just sitting on insane amount of money. But that's what he did, 2,000, 4,000 home subdivisions. So I picked his brain a little bit and I said, hey, can you walk me through some of these, at least one or two of them? And so I put up the money. He partnered with me, showed me the ropes on the big thing when you're dealing with the bigger tracts of land is like oil leases, right? Underground gas lines, easements, things like that. So that's where he really helped out was, hey, did you check Schedule B? And I'm like, why? He's like, I need to check oil leases. I'm like, there's 2 pages of it. And he's like, well, you need to go get the title company to send you all the deed records and start reading through that, sending affidavits for non-production. And all that was just crazy. But yeah, I did a couple deals with him and then looked up and I had worked out that I would split the profit with him. So I put a couple $100,000 in his pocket and realized, hey, I'm going to just go out on my own at this point and just see what happens.
Yeah, I can imagine that hands-on mentorship, partnering, JV type structure was super eye-opening and educational, to say the least, right?
Yeah, it was just a lot of obvious stuff. He made me work for it. I would get all the way to the end and he'd be like, did you check this and that? And I'm like, crap, man, I just wasted 30 days of my life. Like this deal isn't going to work. And um, so it was a lot of hard, tough lessons. Land's tricky. Land is like right now with the interest rates, Texas Farm Credit's at 8.5. It's tough. I try to owner finance what I can, try to sell out other stuff with banks as well. I try to sell as many as I can, utilizing cash or banks whenever they buy it until my underlying debt's paid off. And then once that's done, I can jump in and owner finance the rest if I got a loan against it. So some of them I pay cash for, some of them I get a loan. Just depends on how many deals I have going on right now.
Got it. Now that's something I definitely want to dig into. But before we get into that, I do want to know, tell me what was going through your mind when you first decided that you wanted to experiment with land. You were doing houses, you did up to 100 houses in a single year in your previous business, and then you got the idea to do land. So what was going through your mind in terms of what your exit strategy would be, what your business model would be? How did you decide on that?
I'm not that guy that thinks everything through. I'm a run first kind of guy. COVID had me a little scared. When my back's against the wall, I take off running and I just figure it out on the way. I've always been like that. And it was just an aha moment when I was talking to, it was actually one of my agents at the time, when I was talking to him and he told me what he was doing, just a light bulb went off. And I'm like, man, I could replicate this for the investment side. He was using it just to find his personal deal. So I just took it and ran. I think I was spending like $12,000 a month in mailers,
Wow.
and just went crazy, to the point where I was actually getting my own mailers with someone else's name on them sent back because they just basically copied and pasted. It didn't last very long. It lasted about 2 years. And then there was so much competition that I tried a couple different markets and it didn't work. And so I moved on to the bigger tracks. And I still do my little owner finance houses. That's the bread and butter. But yeah, it was it was a fight or flight mechanism. When COVID hit, that's what I would account it to.
Yeah, just pivot. That's
Yeah, just pivot and
entrepreneurship
go.
101. Yeah. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that very first larger acreage deal. So you've been doing several of these smaller deals, and then now comes a subdivide opportunity. What were some of the bigger learning curves that you encountered doing those larger acreage parcels in comparison to those smaller deals that you started your career with?
Yeah, my first one wasn't too crazy. Like I said, I think it was like 30 or 40 acres. I don't remember. Having a good surveyor, He helped me out a lot with road frontage and drawing out the tracks. I don't go any less than 10 acres because I don't want to deal with platting. If it's 10 acres or more, you can just have a surveyor draw it up and move on down the road. So that's usually what I stick with. And although in this one county where I got this first one at, they did allow me to do a 5 acre tract without doing any sort of platting. I did have to send some paperwork in, but it was making sure that one had some weird easements, some cross throughs, but it had an underground gas line on it. I did go out and do some clearing, put up some new fences, gates, made it look nice. What else? I would say just making what made me nervous on that first one was just did I cover everything? I was not confident that everything was covered, and I was scared when I go to sell it, something's going to pop up and it's going to bite me in the butt.
Sure. Yeah, definitely get that. So now that you've gone through a few different types of deals in the land space, what would you consider to be your specialty now?
I like the bigger tracks. For me, I don't just do land. I do land, but it's just another angle. It's just another way to owner finance stuff. What I realized, and the reason I do like land, is that I can get a big enough spread on land that when I owner finance it, I can take it to the bank, leverage out, and still put money in my pocket and have a note. And that's our magic there, is doing over 1,000 houses and creating notes on those and then selling some and leveraging them out. Taught me a lot about just the back end side of it. But with a house, you may have a 20-25% spread. And when you go to the bank to leverage out that note, you're probably breaking even. You may have to write a check to put that in there to get your working capital back, because you can't just keep writing checks and creating notes. You'll run out of money.
Right.
So what I realized with land was if I'm buying at 10,000 an acre and I'm selling at 20,000 an acre, I've got a bigger spread there. I can actually go to the bank, leverage out at 75%, put money in my pocket and still have a note, create a note for 20 years at 10.9% interest. Then I've got a 10-year fix with the bank at this time. I can't do this anymore, but back in the days, it was 6% interest at the bank. So I pulled out 20, 30 grand, got my working capital back, realized the profit. The buyer that bought the land from me is making the mortgage or the loan with the bank. And in 10 years, the loan's paid off and I still have the back 10 years. And if you look at an amortization schedule, in 10 years, they pretty much owe you what they started off with, because amortization is all front end loaded. And so that was what I did. And I kept, anytime I can create a note on land, that's what I do. I prefer it because I can pull out profit and still have a note that in 10 years will start paying me again.
Nice. So let's say someone's listening to this and they're hearing the concept of owner financing with land for the very first time. Maybe they are used to just buying at a discount, selling it for close to retail, just doing a straight flip, all cash, and then moving on to the next deal. And so they're saying, gosh, this sounds so interesting. Can you explain in very simple terms exactly what that business model is of how you use owner financing when you're doing land deals? Hey, land fans, looking for your tribe of serious land investors? Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the Only Land Fans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at onlylandfansgroup.com and join the conversation today. That's onlylandfansgroup.com. See you there.
Yes, you're basically just, you become the bank. So you create a note, you create a real estate mortgage, you finance the property to them basically. So let's say I'm into it for 100,000 and I'm selling the lot for 180. I'll try to get 10 to 20% down, 10.9% interest, usually non-negotiable, and a 20-year minimum note. I try not to go 30 just because if you do sell the note, most of your buyers want a 20-year. It's very simple. There's some companies out there. Your title companies will help you with a lot of the paperwork. You have August REI that'll do the servicing for you and collect all the payments. And then any bank that you have a relationship with, you can leverage out if you need the capital back. The best part is where if you have enough tracks, you can sell the front side with cash or traditional financing, and then you end up with the back side that you can own or finance free and clear. That's what I like to do if I can, instead of trying to wrap and leverage out and do all that. Um, yeah, that's basically it. And the other thing is that if any of them ever decide to build a house or put a mobile home on there or whatever, whenever they get that new loan, they have to pay off the underlying. So eventually you're going to get paid off. They're either going to pay off your mortgage, they're going to pay you off in 20 years, they're going to pay you off early, they're going to sell the property, or they're going to build a house on it and you're going to get cashed out. So it's a win in every direction.
Excellent. Yeah. Just to clarify for people who may not be familiar with that, if they say, what happens if someone defaults on the loan? Can you talk a little bit about what that process looks like, and have you had anyone that's defaulted before?
Not on land, I have not, but I've done tons of houses. So I have taken some back on houses. The good thing about land is if they default, there's really nothing that they can do to the land to mess it up. It's just dirt. If anything, they're going to do improvements. They're going to put up fencing, they're going to put up gates, they're going to clear some trees, maybe dig a tank. So I'm not stressed about it. Now, when I have all my houses that I have that are owner financed, those make me nervous because they can go in there and do a lot of damage really easily to a house that'll cost me a lot of money. But now land is just dirt.
Yeah, one of the great things about land. So, whenever you are buying these properties, are you using your own cash? Are you JVing? Are you using lenders? Do you raise private money, bank loans? How do you go about funding your deals?
So I'd say 50% of it is cash. And then like on the big deal, like that one in Seguin is $2.5 million. So I just got a bank loan. I put 20% down, financed it for 20 years, and then just made sure that I could do partial releases along the way.
Got it. And for someone who might not be familiar with the term partial release, can you explain that for us?
Yeah, so that if you sell one tract, when you bought the tract, it was 200 acres. So your loan is against the 200 acres. And so whenever you go to sell 10 acres out of it for, let's say, 200 grand, they have to do a partial release. You've got to have an agreement that they'll release that 10-acre tract from under the $2.5 million loan, for instance. And so what we came up with was a price per acre where they would be out at about 80% of tracts sold. I think I bought them for, let's just, for easy math, 10,000 an acre. And the release money would be 13,000 an acre for them. And so I'll end up with 3 or 4 tracts left and the bank's paid off at the end. But this allows me to make money along the way. And on the smaller ones, I don't care. I just pay them off. I don't want any money. On this track, I was like, yes, this is a $13,000, $14,000 a month payment. I need to make some money along the way. This is going to take probably 2 years to sell out. On the smaller tracks, I'm making 60 grand. Bigger tracks, maybe 100 grand. And it's just every time I sell one, I make a little bit, pay the loan down, make a little bit, pay the loan down, keep moving.
Nice. So you mentioned earlier about pulling money out of the land by using banks and getting loans and refinancing, getting mortgage, things like that. I've heard a lot of things about how unfriendly banks are to land investors. So can you talk about which banks you like to use, some tips that you may have about working with banks to pull some of that equity out of the land?
So when you're leveraging a note, they don't care. I mean, they do care what the collateral is, but you're basically, you ever seen those title loan places where you take your car title in and they give you money, right?
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing with the real estate note. You're taking in the real estate note and you're borrowing against that note. They obviously want to make sure that the underlying collateral is valued there as well, because if it forecloses, that's what the collateral is. But I haven't had any issues. Now, if you try to walk into a Randolph Brooks or a Wells Fargo, they're going to laugh at you. You've got to walk in, you got to be able to walk into a bank and talk to a president. So the 2 banks I use, I did ask them, they They are a little picky on. Uh, I had blasted their name one time on Facebook, and they're like, "Please don't ever do that again." They just got a bunch of people just wasting their time. But local small banks, I'm talking small, like one branch, two branches, three branches, where you can go in there and you actually have a banking relationship. Like I can call the president of both those banks, and that's who you do business with.
Nice. So if someone's looking to foster a relationship, nurture a relationship with banks, what tips do you have for those people that are looking to do that?
Let's not kid ourselves. You have to be bankable. You got to show income. They're going to want to see updated income statements, every couple months. So I've got to show them everything. They want to look under the hood and see what's going on. You can't go in there and with no money in the bank, you showed a loss last year on your tax returns and expect them to want to do business with you. You got to be bankable to do it that way. The only other option you have is going on paper stack or somewhere and selling the notes. Now, what you can do is if you have private money, you can use the private money guys as your bank and wrap them. And that's a way to do it without having to deal with the bank. So let's say let's say Kendall, I said, hey, I've got this tract of land here. It's $300,000 and I'm gonna owner finance these notes, but I'm gonna guarantee you a return of 10% for however many years, 10 years. Then I can just go create notes, wrap around you, and just make sure that you're going to be paid off in 10 years or whatever the terms between you and I. And then you don't even have to have the banks. The goal is to get you out early and then end up with the back. It's more of a long-term play. It's more of a retirement type thing. It's not a get rich quick deal, but it happens pretty quick. I just sold $2 million worth of real estate notes only like a year or so ago. And I looked up and I'm already at another 3 million, not including selling them. And so it adds up quick, especially in land when you're doing $200,000-$300,000 tracks. But the private money way would be the best. I don't know a lot of private money guys, so I've never used it, but I know guys that have big business models and they're just wrapping around these private money guys all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very cool structure for sure. You mentioned that you got started in the land space around COVID. I think a lot of people branched out into new and different territories during that time. How have you seen the market change since COVID in your land business?
There's a lot of rookies messing things up. The infill lots are destroyed. Every wholesaler in the world is chasing infill lots. They're over promising. They're sending me deals that are just horribly priced. I that's one other reason I moved. I moved so far away from that where most people couldn't buy them. There's only a handful of people around that can buy a $2.5 million ranch, and that's just what I gravitated to because I got tired of all the competition. And oh, this guy offered me 30K, and I'm like $10,000 lot. Why didn't you sign the papers? And it was flooded. It was just over flooded. I used to buy lots in San Antonio all the time, little infill lots, buy them, turn around, put them in the MLS, sell them, make 10, 20 grand. And it was just like clockwork. And then now just wholesalers are just all over it. And some of them get them good, but not good enough to where I could buy it and justify flipping it after that. So I just moved on.
Got it. Yeah, that makes total sense. So, what would you say are the most important skills to have in the land industry?
Patience.
Ah, very good. Tell me more about that.
When you're doing the bigger tracks, I'm averaging about a year to get through them because you got to think if you have 10 or 15 10-acre tracks in one spot, how many people are looking for 10 or 15-acre tracks in that one spot? I typically find you sell, 50 to 80% right out the gate, and then you sit on the rest for a long time. I still have a track in Gonzales that I've been sitting on going on a year now. I've got a track in Victoria, my last one as well, that I've been sitting on almost a year now. All the other ones were just bam, 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 sold like hotcakes. And then I'm stuck with this last one. So you got to have patience. You got to make sure that you've got the money to weather the storm. That's why I still do houses and I still chase other things for quick money. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's really good advice. So, Drilling down in some nuts and bolts now, how do you find your deals now? How are you finding these larger acreage deals?
So a lot of your big tracks you can find in the MLS. All but one I bought out of the MLS.
Ah, really interesting.
If you think about it, when you get to 100, 200, 300 acres, your price per acre is already going to be low. That you have to. You can't sell a 200 acre ranch for 20,000. Well, for a while there they were. They got crazy, but most of them are going to be, if the retail on a 10-acre track is 20,000 an acre, you're probably going to find a 100 to 200 acre track for 10 to 15,000, and then you just got to negotiate from there. But I do have a list that I cold call. I don't do mailers anymore. I just got bored with it, moved on. I've been able to buy these big tracks out of the MLS, and they, like I said, they take a year. Once you buy a couple of them, you're full, and you're out doing other stuff to kill time while that's making money.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Only Land Fans podcast, please let us know by subscribing and leaving a review. Now let's get back to the action. Nice. So if someone is listening to this and they're excited about the idea of buying these larger deals on the MLS, what advice would you have for someone that's looking to interface with these agents, talk to these agents? What types of tips would you have for starting those relationships?
Honestly, most of the agents aren't real land savvy either. There are some, like you have your ranch brokers, but they're usually priced right, or they're priced too high. You're going to want to see, obviously, a survey. You're going to want to know about, are there any leases on the property, oil leases? That's one of the first things. The very first thing I do is I look at road frontage. Does it have enough road frontage to put entrances? Or does it have dual road frontage? Or, road frontage is the key. It'll make you or break you, because I don't want to go put a $500,000 road down the middle of something and asphalt it and do all that crap. I want it to be, I'm lazy. I want it easy. So road frontage is number one. If it's got good road frontage, the next thing I'm looking at is the FEMA map. How many times I've gotten all excited, started writing up a contract, and my wife, did you check the flood map? Ah, shit. Oh, I'm sure it's good. It's out there in the country, and we'll pull it up, and the whole damn thing's in zone AE or whatever. So the second thing you want to do is check a flood map. If those two are good, then you want to negotiate price, try to get it under contract. Once it's under contract, you got to just be patient and wait for your title commitment or your Schedule B. Then you want to devour Schedule B, go through all that, and you're going to have to do a lot of reading on some old 1900 leases and do your research, because the title company is not going to do it. You want to make sure there's no oil leases on the property. If there is, there's no activity going on. There's no oil wells. And that's a personal preference. I do know some guys that don't care, but who wants to buy a 10-acre tract with an oil derrick in their backyard, or the potential of them to be able to come in and do oil stuff around? So that's the other thing. Easements, things like that. After that, you close it and get to work. First thing I do is I clean up the property. I usually try to get, if it needs to be clear with the skid steer and a mulcher, get in there and do that. Some properties I'll put full fencing up. Some I'll just put the corners. And I will tell you, if you're going to do big tracks or multiple tracks, put the corners and put a sign that says track whatever. Because what will annoy you is on Sunday, you're getting blown up. I'm out here at this property and I'm over by this big tree. It's over by this hump. There's like a gopher mound over here. Which track am I still on track J, or what track am I on right now? And I'm like, I don't know where you're at.
I don't know the gopher mound to speak of.
Oh my God. Yeah, that happened on one time, and I called my guy. I was like, go put fencing up. And we'll run like a single strand or a dual strand around the property, or hit the four corners. If it's wide open land, I'll hit the four corners real tall, like 8-foot T-post. And if it's really wooded, then I'm going to do a single or a dual strand with a gate. That way they know that they've ran into the property line when they hit the barbed wire fence. Yeah, that's the next thing I do. And then obviously in the very beginning, you want to make sure 10-acre tracts are selling for more than what you're buying it for. And one thing I will say with land is there's really not much you can do about it except for negotiate price. So make sure you've got cushion there, because it's not like a house where you can go and make it prettier and keep making it prettier. And it's just land.
The
Your
value
only,
add is a
yeah,
subdivider.
your only real negotiating tool is price. I've tried adding tanks, I've tried adding entrances, and it helps, but it doesn't. It's not, oh, yes, I'm going to buy that property now because it has those things. It's just, I don't know. I
Got it.
always try to have a big spread.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So when you're buying these properties on the MLS, are you paying typically what they're asking? Are you finding that there's some room for negotiation? How are you typically, what's the percentage that you're usually getting in terms of a discount on the actual list price?
Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything.
It varies. Usually I'm paying pretty close, but you also got to realize that since I've been in land, the market's been nuts.
Right.
And people were paying over list. The one in Gonzales was listed at $1 million and I paid $1 million for it. Kingsbury was listed. I got that one really good. I did negotiate that one. The one I have in Harwood that I ended up keeping, I got a little bit off of that one, not much. It's pretty close to list on most of these. But the other thing I'm going to start playing with is, because I'm tired of these long 1-year waits to go through all the tracks, is the one in Harwood that I kept for 2 years, and we turned it into our own little playground. We have all kind of stuff out there. I bought a skid steer and an excavator, and we ran water lines, and we got 4-wheelers and dirt bikes, and we cut all these trails through it and tanks, and we've had a blast. And I'm like, let's flip it. Just flip the whole thing. I think I paid like 400 grand, probably got 100 in it, and we're going to try to list it like 1.2 and see if it'll stick. But when that one sells, I'm going to probably 1031 that into another big track that you can't even get on. I want something so overgrown, you can't even get on it. And then I want to go in there and clean it up, make it all nice and pretty, and just try to sell the whole thing and see what that's like. I get bored easily, so I want to try different things.
Yeah, got to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. Why not?
Yeah. One guy told me he used to flip the big ranches, not subdividing them, but flipping them. And he said, if the wife can't get in the truck and drive around and look at the property, you ain't going to sell it.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
She's not going to go hike through. Guys, we'll go through there and duck under trees, and we're getting all scratched up everywhere. And this is awesome. And she's, hell no, we're not buying this property.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you can get around the property. If there's a big tank, that there's a little place to drive to the tank. I always clear around the whole entire fence line, and I want to be able to drive a truck or a Jeep or whatever around it. And then I'll try to cut one down the middle, and then I'll cut something to like a hill or a tank or whatever as a minimum.
Nice. So when you're structuring these deals with agents, what's your due diligence process? What's that period for you, and what's your deposit that you're typically paying?
I mean, 1% standard for earnest money. And I do a lot of research before I get into it. Schedule B is going to be your biggest thing. I'm doing normal closings, 45 days.
Nice. Okay. Really good. So let me ask you, when you are working with owner financing and you're selling on owner finance terms, are you finding that your buyer pool is bigger? And what types of end buyers are you actually working with?
Yeah, it's absolutely bigger. Land loans tend to be harder to get. Construction loans are a pain in the butt. So a lot of people they like the idea of owning land that one day they may build on. And you got to make that as easy as possible. The pain of entry is a lot easier. Interest rates higher, but I always tell them, look, you're not going to, eventually you're going to build out here. So you're going to refi me out anyways. Just use me as a tool to get the property quickly and start having fun with it, and then worry about refinancing it later. Yeah, your buyer pool is going to be bigger. It's typically you're going to find self-employed. Most of them are self-employed. There's really no other demographics that with land. It's all over the place, but a lot of them are just self-employed.
Very good. And do you list all of your properties in the MLS, or how do you find your buyers mainly?
It depends. I sell more just on Facebook Marketplace. If it's owner finance, your owner finance guys are looking on Marketplace, and they're looking on, like, they have groups like Gonzalez garage sales and more, and Victoria list it all, and whatever those groups are. Find the one that has the biggest number and just post there. I do put them in the MLS, but if I'm going the owner finance route, I find off the MLS is where you find those buyers.
Got it. And is there a price range that you are finding that more people are able to pay, or more, I guess, the more popular price ranges right now in this particular market?
For owner finance, or
both?
Yeah, so owner finance, I'm learning the hard way that once you get into that 200,000-ish range, it gets a little tough because the payment's about $2,000 a month. So I've got one in Gonzales is 247, 10.9% interest, 20 years is over 2,000 a month with 20 grand down. Now that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I find that sub 200s sell quick. So my 200 acres, all my 10-acre 199 tracks, like, we're gone. And now I'm sitting on these other ones that are 250, 350, etc. I'm also going to play with doing a spec home on one of these as well. That's another angle I'm working. I've got it. We should pour concrete next week, but I'm going to try to do a little spec home on one of these 10-acre tracks to see how that works. And if it works good, then some of these tracks that are a little harder to sell, I can just build a spec home on, because the point of entry is easier. Now you can get an FHA loan, 3.5% down. You're not having to put the 15, 20% down to get a land loan. You get a better interest rate. That's been my pivot lately. But if you can tell, there's a recurring theme of me getting bored and trying new things, getting bored and trying new things. And I'm not the do the same thing every day guy. That gets old.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, honestly, because obviously you're finding things that work and pivoting when is necessary. And I think that's being nimble as an entrepreneur, I think, is super important. Really cool to see. So you mentioned road access, you mentioned the FEMA plane. Do you have any other deal breakers for you? If you come across this in your due diligence, it is 100% will not pass go, will not collect $200, you are moving on to the next one.
Let's say it starts off with road frontage and FEMA. Those are my top two. And then right after that, the next biggest deal killer is oil leases. Any sort of oil production, oil leases, things like that. After that, it's just normal stuff after that. I'm trying to think of anything else that would be a big deal killer. Those are the big three that I can think of off the top of my head.
Got it. Yeah, that's fantastic. So if someone wants to get started doing what you do, what would be some of the most important pieces of advice that you would have for them to get into this particular industry?
Start like I did. Start small, flip the little ones, build up a bigger nest egg, and then roll that into the big ones, and then make some more money and roll that into bigger ones, and just keep climbing up the ladder is what I've done. I took the profits off of the small ones and rolled it into the big ones, and then took the profit off of those and rolled it into some more. And I do other stuff. I've got 7.5 acres I'm developing. I'm trying to get an RV park on. I just built a bunch of warehouses. I've got some land that I bought in New Braunfels that I'm probably going to do warehouses or RV park there. Still do owner finance housing. I have a co-working space so I there's a lot of diversity there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very
Don't
cool.
just be like, all I'm going to do are 200-acre ranches, unless you've got something else to support you, because you're going to be sitting for a while.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely agree with that. So can you talk to us a little bit about your operations? What does your team look like?
So it's convoluted because I do have some people that kind of work across. So I own a real estate brokerage, White Line Realty. And the manager on that side, Susie, she's been with me all the way back when I was doing houses. Now she's a part owner into White Line, and she helps with all my owner financing stuff. If you ask me to do an owner finance deal today and I couldn't call her, I don't know. I haven't looked at the paperwork in a long time. So she does all that. Other than that, it's just me. Back when I had Alamo and we were doing 100 plus houses a year, we had 15 people plus contracting crews. On my flipping side, I've got 2 guys that are full-time that rehab houses. But on the land side, you have a team, right? I've got a fence guy. I've got a land clearing guy. I've got a tank guy. But other than that, you're looking at it.
Nice.
You don't need a lot. You really don't. With land, you don't need the big, massive teams.
Yeah. Keep it lean.
Yeah.
You're able to go be a lot more nimble that way. So it sounds like you've got a lot of irons in the fire, different types of real estate assets and different asset classes that you're working with. What's your favorite thing about the land space?
I get to go play on it.
Nice.
There's something peaceful about land, going out to land. It's easy. It's hard, but it's easy. I don't have to worry when it freezes that there's pipes that are going to get broken. I don't have to worry. Now, if someone did steal one of my gates at one time, I guess there is stuff that can be stolen. Before that, I was like, there's nothing they can take. Yeah.
Hold my beer.
They can steal a freaking $100 gate from Tractor Supply. But
right.
yeah, man, it's just dirt. So I haven't looked at the one in Gonzales in probably 6 months. I'll send a guy out there to shred it every now and again to keep it nice, but it's trees and dirt.
Yeah. And so what do you consider to be the biggest challenge in the land business?
Point of entry on the bigger stuff, and then timeline. Takes a long time.
Yeah.
Smaller stuff, you can turn and burn. But I'm doing my mentorship right now, and I've got a couple guys that are doing the mailers like I did when I did the Canyon Lake stuff, and they just popped off a couple of them. One guy did 20 grand yesterday, and I'm like, man, y'all are going to get me back into this again. This is how much fun those little $10,000, $20,000 hits are. Boom, made 20 grand.
Very good.
Yeah, I totally forgot what your question was.
Yeah, biggest challenge.
Biggest challenge.
Yeah.
It's the point of entry. It's a lot of money. You're on these bigger tracks, you're looking at 500, $1 million, $2 million on up. So it's big money.
Yeah, for sure. So what's something, in your opinion, that not many people are talking about or no one is talking about in the land industry right now that we should be talking about?
You know, I don't know if there's anything that I can think of. Just right now, I think we're still feeling the price increases of that big rush we had. Land prices in Seguin went from 15 to 30,000 an acre, and getting those to get back down and get into line so you can buy right again. I don't think really anyone knows what's going on right now with interest rates and everything else going on in the world. It's just everyone's just sitting around waiting. It is tough. It's tough to sell land at, like I said, 8.5% interest. Other than that, I don't know of anything that sticks out.
All right, got it. So what do you consider to be your superpower?
I'm extremely hard on myself. Even when I'm winning, I don't let myself think I'm winning, so that I try to stay in that fight, the fight or flight mode 24/7. Almost to the point where I'm not even sure I know the difference anymore. I'm just constantly pushing, and what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Outwork them.
What's your definition of success?
That's an individual thing. I'm envious of people that do less than me and that are happy. If you want to get deep.
Yeah.
I think a lot of uber successful, highly successful people have a big hole in them. And that's why they chase that, is to get that filled. And it's like that old song, there's a hole in my bucket. It's just constantly leaking out. So you're constantly trying to fill it up. And I have some friends that are just content as could be. They're fishing every weekend. They're taking these vacations. And I'm just sitting there. How do you have time to do that? I'm over here running. And then when I do go, all I can think about is I want to get back already. And for me, success, I'll be successful when I think I've built everything to a point where I can just walk away. Now, the problem with that is I could have already done that a couple times, but I tend to put myself in situations where I'm leveraging back up again.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this cash sitting here and let's go do this development and that development. Then that gets me hungry again. I'm like, oh shit, I need more money. And then it puts me back in the rat race. So whether that's done subconsciously on purpose or not, I don't know.
Yeah. You like working? Is that your hobby, main thing?
I enjoy growth. I enjoy building companies. That's why I have a fly shop down in Rockport, the real estate brokerage, the co-working space. I just took back over a pest control business that I gave to my dad when I was 28, that I started when I was like 19. I like the growth part of it. Once it gets where it's running smooth, I'm bored. I'm done at that point. Mm-hmm. So that's probably why I'll get the land thing going. Then I'm like, let's build spec homes. And I'm just constantly, I gotta have that drive. I gotta have that challenge. Yeah, I don't know. When it comes to success, like I said, don't let what other people's success, like what makes them successful, determine what makes you successful, because it's all different.
Everyone has a different definition for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't listen to the Instagram guys where, oh, you're successful if you do this. I know guys that are very successful and make a third of what I make, and they're successful.
For sure. So are there any type of entrepreneurs, business owners, thought leaders that you like to listen to, read their stuff? Anyone you follow?
Not really anymore at this stage of my life. Jim Rohn was a big one for me back in the days. I've devoured his stuff. There's not really any of these new guys that I tend to follow too much. Like I don't get into the old 10X guy. What is his name?
Grant Cardone.
Yeah, I don't get into the old Grant Cardone guy. And a lot of the guys nowadays are hoorah, hoorah, look at me, look at this fancy car, look at this. I like the old school guys like old Jim Rohn, where he just teaches what's funny is a lot of these guys, Grant Cardone and a lot of these guys come from Jim Rohn.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
They're all just spinoffs.
Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich, all the obvious books and stuff like that. Now I like listening to like Joe Rogan, and I'll listen to different books. I like autobiographies and stuff like that. Just things that make me think different. I've read so many dang motivational books and self-help books and real estate books. And for the first 15 years of my career, I was shoving those things down my throat, and I'm just over it, burnt out on it.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that.
I get a lot of my motivation from guys like you and like my buddy Logan and all my friends that I see are successful. Because I had told Logan probably about 6 months ago, about a year ago, I guess. I was like, yeah, man, I'm freaking done. I cashed out. I'm done. I'm just going to rebuild this pest control business and I'm out. And he's like, I don't see you doing that, Eric. You're crazy. And I'm like, nah, dude, I'm done. And then I'm sitting there and I see him every day. He's posting this big deal and that big deal and this big deal. And I'm like, my competitiveness kicks in and I'm like, all right, fuck it. Let's go. And then I thought you were done. Yeah, I got a second win. Let's go.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. Iron sharpens iron, man.
Yeah. If you're a competitive guy, like looking at it, and even the ones that are fakes, I just want to go out there and prove that you can do this legit and not have to be a fake. There's so many freaking fakes on social media. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure.
Drives me nuts.
I get it for sure. So what's the biggest surprise you've had so far on your journey into the land space?
There's a lot of damn money you can make in land. It doesn't feel like it because you get a little bit over time. Mm-hmm. But like on that 200-acre tract, it's got a $1.5 million back end. And because I'm going to see it over a year or two, you don't get that thrill of getting $1.5 million check at once. But there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money.
Right. 1 to 2 years can go by pretty quick.
Exactly.
For sure.
When your tax person tells you made X amount of dollars, I'm like, I can freaking make that much money. Show you and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I did.
Yes, I did. Yeah. All right, very good.
Yeah.
Nice. So if you could go back and tell yourself 3 pieces of advice when you were first starting out, what would they be?
Oh, I hate this question.
First of all,
No,
before we get to your answer, why do you hate the question?
it's because you're going to get a cliche response, right? If I went back and changed who I was, I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I like who I am. Obviously, if I could have stayed the course a little bit more, I tend to bounce around a lot. Like I said, try this business, try that bit, and build it. I think I could have been retired at probably 30 or 35 if I would have just stayed with my pest control business that I started and just focused 110% on growing that and building it, and not building it to make money to go do real estate and then failing at that and coming back and starting another one and giving it to my dad. But all of that has made me who I am today. And White Line Realty is my big push, my big company, and everything I've learned from all the other issues is what'll drive me for that. Yeah, my biggest thing is just stay the course, take it easy. I realize that time goes by fast. I'm 42, and it seems like I've been just building businesses since I was 19. I don't know, but I like who I am. I like where I'm at.
Yeah. Right on. So, what's your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Business related or just
Any way you want to spin it.
say it again? What is my biggest what?
What's your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
My son is 16. I've trained him last summer on doing real estate, and he's really rekindled my fire to try to grow some more and do some more real estate stuff. Because I was going to do some ranches and sell off in the sunset and just do those on the side.
Right.
But he's getting into real estate. He likes it. He wants to graduate. So I've gotten into trying to get caught up with all the new hip stuff and all the new technology. And so I got the Augustar and the REI Sift, and I'm trying to learn all that and virtual assistants. And I'm trying to build this up so when he graduates, him and I can go out there and tackle the world and do some deals together. So I think that's going to be my next big motivation, is watching him grow. And him and my nephew they spent all summer cold calling, and they got one house, and it's almost done being rehabbed. And that'll be their quote unquote first flip at 16 years old.
Yeah, that's incredible. Talk about a proof of concept too. Like, you have a proof of concept at 16 years old. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's got a lot to learn. It's right now I'm trying to instill the fundamentals in the working, because when you're a kid, the hard work part is what's like you don't realize. I'm like, no, you could literally call numbers all summer long and maybe get a deal. So trying to push them and motivate them through the entire summer was a full-time job. This sucks. And then they got that first deal. I'm like, woo, they're all pumped up.
Let's do it again.
Now, did I overpay for that first deal to get it for them?
Maybe a little bit.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. That's incredible. That's incredible. What is it that, aside from perseverance and sticking to it, what other lessons have you realized in teaching your son about getting into this journey? What lessons have you been really pushing that way he gets it and he has a really good foundation for success in the real estate space?
I don't come from any money. Everything I've done has been me. And so I don't want him to fall into the trap of the rich dad syndrome, right? Where he's just given this. It's instilling the core values that we need to be successful, and just not giving everything, which he's a good kid. If you just met me on the street and went to our house, you wouldn't think that there's a whole lot of money there. So the kids aren't just over the top, spoiled rotten. And it's just instilling that at a young age. But we're big basketball guys. Like, I'm a big basketball dude. I got my own basketball gym in McQueenie, and he's been in basketball since he was 10. And I've always made it a point that whenever we're training and we're working out every day, 6-7 days a week, that I correlate that to life. I'm like, just like in life is just like this. Like, you've been training for a year and you've gotten like that much better, right? That's the same thing in life. You're going to have to work hard to be successful. You didn't just wake up and you can dribble with your left hand and your right hand. You didn't just wake up and you can do a step back. You've had to train and train and train, and just trying to get all those things to mesh so that when he does hit 18, even if he runs away from me and does his own thing, that hopefully he's got some values there.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And talk about value of being able to connect, like you said, connect that experience of sports and discipline to life, because it really is. You just change one or two words and like you're doing life lessons, right? Like it's
And
not
that
just,
that's a big problem, I think, with athletes is that no one's ever taught them that. So whenever they don't make it and they get out, they're like, I don't have any skills. Are you freaking kidding me?
yeah,
You've got
yeah,
some of the best skills out there. Like everything that you taught, if you just put that towards life, think about you getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym and work out. Like my son's in early morning practice. So he's getting up at 5 to be at the gym at 6. Okay. What if you did that in real life? What if you got up at 5 and got to the office at 6? And then he's working out in the afternoon. Okay. And then he's doing this and he's putting up 1,000 shots. And what if you just, instead of using it for sports, you use it for life? But no one ever teaches these kids that. And so I'm trying to teach as many of them as I can. My son and my nephew and my son's friends and anyone that'll listen.
I love that. I love that. Alistair McCaw, he's a sports psychologist and coach. He has a lot of books that he equates like sports psychology to like business and life and that type of thing. And there's so many parallels. It's incredible. So, yeah, it absolutely is. It's the same thing, just on a different scale.
Yeah. If you're a car salesman and you took the philosophies that you did for the 4 years you were in college or high school playing sports, and if you just took those over to that and tweaked some things, like you'd probably be the top salesman there in a month.
Yep. Yeah. So. It's amazing. Really cool stuff. I could talk about that kind of thing all day.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I want to thank you so much. You've given us so much value, Erik. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your time with us tonight. What resources or connections are you looking for currently? How can we give back to you?
And I really don't have anything to sell y'all or pitch you or anything. I do have a book out. You know, if you want to go to Amazon and buy it, I think I make like $1.75 every time.
Nice. What's the name of your book?
It's Stop Flipping, Stop Renting. Owner Finance Your Way to Financial Freedom if you want to do the full long thing. But basically, it's Stop Flipping, Stop Renting.
Right on.
But no, I don't have anything. Just here to give back. If you want to follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Instagram is a little more personal. That's where I post my cars and all my fun stuff. Facebook is where you'll see all the business stuff. But if you want to follow me on those, just search my name.
Right on. Very good. Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank you, Erik, for joining us. Thank you guys so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And be sure to join us next week, next Thursday, same time, same place. We'll have another great interview. Erik, I want to thank you so much again. This has been fantastic. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate
All right, everyone. Take care. Be safe. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other seven-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at onlylandfans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.